Hi there, Neil McGee with a little screencast to give you a basic primer on the Amazon Web Services console. This is a tool you're going to be using off and on through the whole semester. You'll be using it in quick labs. You'll be using it in some of the labs that you do that are self-assigned, that have things that I've written or things that Amazon has posted and so on. But you'll also be using them hopefully for some of your data project work. And I'd like you just to have a little bit of an orientation to how to get around in the console. I know it can be a little overwhelming, and if it's not something you're used to using, you'll kind of stumble your way through it. And it's fairly intuitive, but it helps just to have a little hand holding at first. So I'm in a web browser. I'm at aws.amazon.com. And you'll almost always see, when you're not signed in, you'll see this orange button, sign into the console. So I'm going to click on that. And now you're going to notice when you first log in a choice between a root user and an IAM user. The first root users they always sign in by an email address, and they are the account owner. They're the ones who pay the bills, basically. And they have superpowers. They can do anything within the account that they want. But a better practice is for real people kind of doing day-to-day work, or developers on a team and stuff like that, is to set up IAM accounts. And so you set up separate user accounts within your account. And the really cool thing is you can grant them very specific permissions. So maybe a group of you guys, I could make you my database administrator team or something like that. And I could give you permissions to create things and control them and manage them all within certain database services and so on. And maybe another group is for storage, and you could get all the storage services. Maybe another team of you worries about computing and Spark instances or Jupyter Lab notebooks and things like that. Anyway, I could divide and allocate those permissions accordingly. Or I could create an IAM user that's actually a full admin, and they could do everything that they want as well. So you can take it however you want. Let's go ahead and log in probably the way you're going to log in, which is just as a root account user. So here's my NEM2P. I've got a lot of accounts, you can tell. I'm going to sign in. And then you come into what we call the console. After you've been here a while, this recently visited services will sort of start to get populated automatically. You can see things that I've been in lately. But if you've not been in here before, you can see the full list of a rather overwhelming list. I think we're well over 100 now of various services. So these are all cloud-based services that provide something for us. Infrastructure. So some of these are actually kind of raw infrastructure like servers. So EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud, and that's where I can create a virtual server. Some of them are just direct services though that I interact with, and I don't really spin anything up to run it and pay for it by the hour. EC2 I pay by the hour. But in S3, I just create a storage bucket and I just throw things in there. I don't have to tell it how big the bucket is or anything like that. So that's just sort of a cloud-based service. So many of these are services. Many of them are kind of more generic infrastructure to build other things with and so on. So you can look around in the groupings as you want, analytics and developer tools, and here's all their machine learning stuff. That list is getting pretty long. There's monitoring, there's compute, storage, and so on. If you go down below that, there are build a solution. These are sort of simplified these are almost like micro quick labs where you can learn about how to do things in just a couple minutes. There are some longer sort of pathways that you can learn. Here's a storage pathway with 3 videos, 3 tutorials, and 3 labs. Any of this would be great stuff for you to investigate. The machine learning section, big data sections, these are pretty useful. Because honestly, they want to make it so easy for you to use that the sort of friction or the hurdle of getting started in there is pretty low. So that's all your services. You'll always have this search bar at the top, so you can always type for a service if you want. So here's S3, or I could say DynamoDB for their NoSQL database and get there. So that's useful. You can also always go to the flyout. That's what we call these things. And again, this section is going to get populated by favorites. So if I've starred something, this is what I really use a lot over here. But then again, I get this whole, in the flyout itself, I get the whole menu again of services that I get from the main console page. Don't worry about these icons for alarms and so on. This section where my name is, of these 3 drop downs, this is information about my account. So I could click in here and get details about my account. Here's the account number. If I was running an organization, I could manage it here. Service quotas. Service quotas are sort of an initial threshold for new accounts, which means for most services, they sort of give you a baseline limit of the maximum capacity that you can use. If you're in production, you're working for a big company, you're working for Netflix or whatever like that, you can make requests to AWS for them to raise your service quotas. So they might have a quota that you can't run more than 20 of a certain server type, and you might say, hey, I need 200 of them, and Amazon will raise that quota. You can go to a billing dashboard. This is really, really useful let's drill into here a little bit, to see what my spending is for the month. So here I'm forecast to spend 62 cents this month. I'm pretty sure that's from S3 charges in storage. This is where, if you haven't done this setup lab yet, this is where you would set up a budget and an alert if I was coming close to my budget and so on. So this is a way I can kind of drill down and see where my costs are going, what services are being used, how much I'm paying, and so on. And they'll give you suggestions for how to save money. So if I go back there, my security credentials, if I click into that, this is where I can set up my access keys, which I have here. It'll tell you when they're last used and so on. I can set up multi-factor authentication. I can change my password, CloudFront key pairs, and so on. So that's about me. And then the next selector has got, it says global. And right now I'm in the IAM service. But let's click into another service like EC2 Compute. This is what we call a region-based service. And because this isn't CS4740, I won't go into all the gory details of the model, but it's enough for you to understand that Amazon and all these other cloud providers work on the concept of regions. And a region is made up of multiple data centers. And so Amazon has about, 25 or 30 regions, maybe 20. So in the United States, there is North Virginia, which has a code name, or its identifier is US East 1. There's US East in Ohio, which is US East 2. There's US West 1, which is in Northern California in the Bay Area. Northern Virginia is in the Dulles area, by the way, all around. Massive data centers all around Dulles. And then US West 2 is in Oregon. And then you can see there's Cape Town, there's Asia Pacific, there's Canada, Europe, and so on. Sao Paulo has one. These are kind of coming online every year or two, a new region's being opened. Now, when you're in Quick Labs, they're going to throw you into the region of choice, probably based on price. That's fine. Go with whatever they give you. And they usually tell you in Quick Labs, hey, we will put you in the right region. Please don't change that. But when you're doing your own work, I would just recommend that you stay in US East 1 and 2. And I say that for 2 reasons. I'd say first, stay in US East 1 because it's the oldest and first region, and it has the most services available. Any new service that's going to launch at all, or any newest version of a service, is going to come to US East 1 first. That's just a fact. Also, the US East 2 in Ohio might be a decent choice because one of the 2 of these is probably going to have the least latency, which means the fastest connection between you and that region. Unless you're abroad, or maybe you're in California or New Mexico or whatever like that. If you're building your own things, feel free to build them in the region that's sort of closest to you. That chances are you'll get the best connection with the least latency. But that's not always the case given how the internet works. So sometimes when you see a resource that you've created and you can't find it again, it might help to kind of drill down through the regions, particularly the US-based ones. There is another region here that's not visible called GovCloud, and this is where AWS supports federal agencies and their contractors. So the NSA, the CIA, defense intelligence agencies, and so on. I think all 19 intelligence agencies have a footprint there, along with all the contractors and people like that. So it's where you can have really massive compliance and FedRAMP stuff. And anyway, yeah, high level stuff. So that's not a public region that anybody can go to. You have to have a reason to go there, and you have to be authorized to go there, or have a client who's authorized to go there. So that's the region model. And then for support, you can go to some links. If you go to Support Center, that's where you can create a ticket. They have these forums where it's sort of crowdsourced answers to things, expert help, documentation, training, and so on. So that's where if you had something very odd happening in your account, or maybe you had a little bill, a charge that you couldn't quite figure out where is this coming from, you could create a ticket, and they'll get back to you in a day or two and give you a good, helpful answer. They're pretty good about that. Now, if you're in a big company or you work at a university, after you graduate or things like that, you might pay for better support. So there's tiers of support, and at the free level, you get kind of slow email-based support. But if you pay for like enterprise level, you'll get an answer within an hour. They might set up a phone call with you. Some of their best support engineers would be immediately helping you. So it's nice to know that if you get in trouble, the resources are there. So that's really the console in a nutshell. You can always get back to the main page of the console from the little icon up there. But again, the services that we're probably going to touch the most this semester will be S3 for storage, some RDS and Dynamo and Elasticache within databases. We'll be using EC2 a little bit and Lambda, which is serverless computing. Maybe a few other things along the way, but I don't need to go through all those right now. Just wanted you to have a basic sense for the AWS console. Thanks.